are joined right now by the Honorable Member of Parliament, Kwaku Kwarteng, who made the statement. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, and good morning to your listeners.
Thank you for your time. Let me ask you this first. Who were you talking to? Who's the audience for your statement?
Well, the audience for this statement is the NPP leadership and membership. I actually put this statement together some 3 or 4 days ago, and it was published on many of our platforms. I did not really intend it to be in the media, but once it got into the media, I thought it was important I follow up with these discussions to explain exactly what I meant.
So let's do that. Let's find out what you meant. First of all, if you just joined us, we're talking to Mr. Kwaku Kwarteng, Honorable Member of Parliament, whose statement he called the way we run our economy a Ponzi scheme is making the rounds. He joins us now to give us some further understanding of what he meant by that. So yes, why don't you walk us through your thinking on this one?
Okay, first and foremost, the NPP is going for an election, and the election itself is in December, some 4 months away. The party is crafting messages to break a cycle that we have seen in the Fourth Republic. We want to break the 8. I think the most logical thing to do is to listen to the people who are going to vote, find out what their concerns are, and make commitments to deal with those concerns. That is how you win elections, especially when you are looking to break a cycle. And that is why I titled it the way I did. This piece was for internal consumption. It was to wake the party up to what it will really take to realistically break a cycle we have all known. So that's the first point. Now, what is the message, and what do I think people are feeling? It is not hard to see that business, individuals, have been affected in many ways by the hardship we find in our society and in the economy today, at both the national level and in households. And when I say national level, the macroeconomy, the stability of our currency, our relationship with our development partners and people who lend money to us, our interaction with the international community. Now, you have that only one part having quite some difficulties. Now, in households, you would also see that because of the unfavorable macroeconomic indicators, you are also seeing its impact in people's pockets. And when I go to my constituency, I do hear the complaints. All I have been trying to do is to look at what has brought us here. And the first point is this. I think it is unfair on the Nanado administration or on the current NPP administration when we let it look like maybe things were good, and then this administration is responsible for the difficulties we are seeing. That is never correct. And if you listen to the commentators, it is clear that what is happening is the cumulative effect of decades from independence. If you look at the figures of how we have managed the economy, and things are coming to a head. I am clear in my mind that if we walk the path we have been walking, the next administration, never mind which political party it would be worse than this. We have been to the IMF 17 times. If you add structural adjustment program and HIPIC, 19 times. This is the first time we're going for an IMF program. And the IMF is saying, I will not put money in your economy unless some of your creditors forgive you your debt. So it is clear that things are getting progressively worse, not necessarily because this particular administration has done something extraordinarily wrong, But because when you do wrong things over a period, it is going to come to a point where the consequences will hit you harder and harder. That's where Ghana is right now.
May I ask, is this to say that where we are today was inevitable? That there were no decisions that could have been made to improve our situation? For example, if we had not borrowed so much.
If we had not borrowed so much from independence.
No, in this regime, you are saying that it's not fair to place the blame for where we are on this regime. And I'm asking whether you're by extension suggesting that there's nothing this regime could have done to have made things better. For example, could they not have borrowed less?
I get your question. I get your question, and I think it's a fair question. I think this administration, we, the NPP, must accept our share of the blame. Even though I do not think the problem started with us. There are reforms we should have done, which reforms some of us are beginning to call for now, to have arrested the deterioration that we inherited. So to that extent, yes. And I think as a political party, we should be honest to admit our part in the failure. But it's also important, if we're going to solve this problem well, that we put it in context and that it is an economic management culture that we have lived with so long, and that it will not just be changing a government or a political party that will change it. It calls for a certain new mindset in the way the political class relates to the resources of the country. And that is the kind of discussion I want us to have. There are many who have said, but why do you bring this discussion this close to the election? The thing is this, I want the NPP to be able to assess what has happened over all these decades, to concede that the political class, we have failed in our duty to provide the kind of quality leadership needed to give our people the prosperity they need. If NPP would recognize that, and that is not to say it is just NPP, the previous governments and all. So if we can make that acknowledgement, then we can now say, draw the line and say, going forward, things will be different.
Okay.
And begin to put in place the things that this would require. If we do that, and I hope my colleague MPPs listen to me, if we do that and we sell the message in a credible, honest, transparent way, there's no way we will not win the next election. If we go through the traditional praise-singing political parties' previous workings and making promises, you risk repeating the cycle we have seen, the 8-year cycle.
Now, you talk about the fact that you admit that your party, your government could have actually done something. You've also talked about solutions and how you believe we should find solutions. First of all, tell us, what do you believe your party could have done to actually prevent the current situation in which we find ourselves?
Well, there are the things I have listed in the statement. It is something, it's not just even just this party. The Mama administration, if they had done these things in their time, we would not be here, all right? And it is this. One, when you, but if you permit me, let me explain the Ponzi scheme bit. Then you would,
Please go
maybe
ahead.
Listeners can understand why there's a need to do something. Otherwise, this country is heading for trouble.
Okay.
You know, every year, we overspend our means. And I have some data before me from the year 2020. On the average, every year, we overspend our revenues by some 40.1%. Beginning from the data is from 2020, but this culture, this bad culture, destructive culture, suicidal culture, started after independence and even a little before. So every year you spend more than you earn. So how do we finance the difference? We borrow. The following year, you are still spending more money than you really have. So you need to borrow more to finance that year's overspending, but also to finance yesterday's overspending. So as you move on, you keep borrowing more and more to pay previous debts and also to finance the current year's overspending. Now, we have been doing that over such a long period. Unfortunately, it is under the tenure of the Nana-Addo administration that the lenders are beginning to say, this country, we will not lend to you. That's why I say it's a cumulative effect, that this country, we are not lending to you. We should be asking ourselves as a people, even if you put politics and elections aside, where are we going? If we don't change behavior, if there's not the awareness that we cannot continue like this, where are we going? That is where I say that many Ghanaians, myself included, fear that unless something significantly changes, this country is heading for a failed state. Why should I wish that on my children and my grandchildren? So that is why I am calling. First, it's a call to the whole country. It's a call to the political class that the path we are walking is leading this country into a ditch. Okay. And we should wake up. But I am focusing on my party because I sincerely believe that NPP, we are capable of turning this country around. And that if we would face these realities, we would listen to the concerns of business, we would listen to the concerns of individuals. We should ask ourselves, where we are now, what is the path to recovery? If we will ask those questions fairly and honestly, then we come to no other conclusion but that the reform must start now. 4 months to the election, you cannot do significant reforms, but you can signal that this is what we recognize. We recognize that our public procurement regime has been fraught with irregularities. It is again not just this Nana-Addo administration. There are many stories in the past under Mama's administration in the past that this is why we draw the line.
Okay.
And just a minute or two.
Please go ahead.
If we would do that, I am confident that the NPP can go into the next election. It's 4 months, but if we signal these messages well, we can go into the next election confident that we're presenting to Ghanaians what they've been yearning for, and in that case, breaking the 8 would follow automatically.
Okay. Now, you've talked broadly about things that should be there, but you had also made the point earlier about what you believed you could have done, as in your government could have done. And that's why I was asking the question, now that you've explained the Ponzi scheme, what do you believe? There are the things I've stated in the document. One, there must be the acknowledgement. Two, after you've acknowledged that there's a failure on the part of the political class, and therefore we are heading in the wrong direction as a country, and it is not a wrong direction. We are not heading in the wrong direction just under this administration. It's a historical path we've been walking wrongly, and that is where we draw the line. I think the political class would do it. If the opposition parties will not do it, NPP, we can rise above everybody and say this is what we believe, so we'll do it. So there must be that acknowledgement. Two, when you have acknowledged that the path we have been walking has been wrong, then the question is, so how do we deal with this? That is where I refer to the reform. The details as to what we would do is something as NPP we can discuss internally. But we must begin to deploy clearly interventions that would deal with the historical wrongs that I have described. Okay.
Now, three, when you have
ahead.
done that, you must give people confidence that you are honest and you mean business. And that is why I talk about leadership by example. That we as leaders, we realize that things are going wrong. We are going to call every Ghanaian to duty. It's not time to make campaign promises and promise people plenty things. It is time, I conclude in 30 seconds. Yes. It is time now for Ghanaians to wake up. We're thinking in a common boat. Ghanaians should wake up. Let's work together. But you, the leader, before you can say that to them, you must deploy and tell people the sacrifices you yourself are going to make so that they can believe that we are in this together. If we do that, I am repeating, the NPP will win the next election with very little sweat.
Okay. So the question I really asked you was that, what did you believe you could have done previously that you didn't do that has contributed to this problem?
We should have we departed from the path we met. The path, and that path is one, overspending your means and always borrowing to fill the gap. That is the fundamental point. We should have arrested that. We should have arrested that by rationalizing our expenditures. Don't spend money you do not have, even if you're going to use it on good things. In our individual lives, you do not just go borrowing because you want your children to be happy, and you go borrowing, and then the next time you borrow your friends to pay the other friends, and you continue borrowing. We don't do that in our individual lives because we love our families, and we don't want our families to collapse. Why do we do that when we come to the national level? So if you ask, what is it we could have done? I'm saying that we should have arrested that trend. And to arrest that trend, you would need a specific set of reforms. Those reforms we cannot discuss on the radio station right now, but
sure,
it is a discussion that we are willing. And look, there are many people in the party who agree with these sentiments I'm expressing, and it is possible for the NPP before the next election to craft a set of interventions that would deal with the correction of the historical path we've been walking wrongly.
Okay. Now, have you always been of this position? Because you've been Deputy Finance Minister before. I'm just curious whether you raised some of these concerns while in government.
I'll answer your question in two ways. First, yes, in our internal discussions, those who are close to me will tell you that I'm always the one drawing attention to excess expenditure. I'm a very cost-sensitive person, and I've always been saying this. The whole time I've been working as a special assistant under the Kwaku administration at the Ministry of Finance, the whole period I was the deputy minister in Parliament, everybody knows me for this. So I've been very consistent throughout my political career. So if you ask, have you always felt this way? But of course, when you are in a government, when you are a deputy minister, and you express views internally, but somehow things get done in a certain way, I think it is wrong for you to therefore come out and say, I said this, my people did not take it, so I'm coming out to say to what end? You will not achieve anything. Your best bet is to work internally to help your government or your party make as much savings as they can, and just hope that things would improve going forward. So my first answer to your question is that yes, I've always held those views, and those who have worked around me will tell you, the technical people in the Ministry of Finance will tell you that this is how this man has always thought. That's the first point. But the second point is this. Let's even assume that I have never had these views and have never expressed them. In our everyday life, you may be doing something wrong for some time. At some point, you just realize that it is not paying off for you. It is not leading you to the kind of life you want. It is for you to sit down and say, the way I have been doing things is wrong. It is not giving me the kind of life I want. It is bringing troubles to my life. And therefore, this is where I draw the line. Going forward, I will not do that again. So even if, granted, and look, I don't speak self-righteously. I'm not saying that as for me, I am some good person and that it is others who have done anything wrong. I have been in this with my colleague politicians. I have been part of many of the wrong things that I am complaining about. I am guilty sometimes of seeing things that are not right, but in the name of collectivity, be it in Parliament, in respect of the whole Parliament, NDC, NPP together, be it within my political party, I am guilty of being part of this. So I'm not speaking self-righteously. All I am saying that whatever we have been doing as the political class, whatever we have been doing as a people, it is leading our country into a mess. So let us draw the line now and change behavior. That is my second answer to you.
Mr. Kwarteng, how has your party responded to these comments? Because you really didn't spare them at all when you were talking about their role in our current position. Let me quote you. You say, we must address concerns about how much of our national resources we spend on ourselves as politicians and take steps to overhaul the corrupt public procurement regime we inherited from previous governments and have continued to live with. You are essentially accusing your own party of continuing corruption. How have they responded to this?
Well, to start with, my appeal to the media is, look, this country, we need to wake up and defend it and work for it together. Even if the politicians were doing something wrong, and we think it is a politician's duty to lead, when the country, if the country goes wrong, it goes wrong on all of us. Please, let's not discuss these matters in a way that makes it difficult for people to say their mind and to express their feelings about the country in a way that robs them against their parties. Look, if you read that statement carefully, I am saying that what we spend on ourselves as politicians. Look, Parliament, as we speak, is led by the NDC, the opposition. If you look at the Parliamentary Service Board, it is led by the NDC. A lot of the practices, the wastage that I complain about, you find it in Parliament as well. So it is not a discussion about some political party. It is a culture we need to deal with and uproot. And therefore, when I say that the sacrifices we will make as politicians, I'm not just talking to the NPP. I'm talking to the NDC and everybody. That as politicians, in order that we would depart from the historical path we have been walking, about which our people are so pained. And Joy FM, I listen to you many times. The criticisms against politicians, we hear that all the time. I am only calling my colleague politicians, not necessarily NPP, that we must change course. When I say the corrupt public procurement regime we inherited, it tells you immediately that I'm not saying that we started the problem. I'm only saying that the entire public procurement regime has been corrupt. Maybe it was too strong as word. Maybe with hindsight, I would have used another word. But all I'm trying to do is to say that the irregularities in there, they lead to wastage. They lead to the big expenditure that drive us to borrow. So if you want to take out that word, it's okay. But I'm calling attention to the fact that we need to overhaul our public procurement regime. And again, I will be happy because I believe that NPP is the best party that can fix this country. I would be happy if my party would boldly take this up and say, this is where we draw the line. And in the next 4 months, deploy a set of we will do's, those that we can initiate. Let's try and initiate them now. Let us prove to Ghanaians that we mean what we are saying. And if we do that, again, we will break the 8 with very little sweat.
What I was asking was, how have they responded since your statement?
Well, the response generally has been good. In fact, as I said, this view was expressed on our internal platforms, and the feedback I have had within party has been very good. Of course, there are always people who are worried about the headlines the media gives it. So when you say we are running the economy like a Ponzi scheme, it's just one line. And therefore, you see it, and your immediate sense is that Honorable Kwaku Kwarteng is criticizing his own party for running a Ponzi scheme. So naturally, there are party people who they see that and they say, oh, how could Honorable Kwaku Kwarteng say that? So there are some within party who are uncomfortable with this kind of discussion because they worry that the opposition would spin it to mean that government is doing the wrong things and they are not in government. So if you are discussing wrong things, then it is something that this administration must pay for. Those people are worried, and we keep having the discussion that if we take my statement in total, you would know that I'm not accusing our government. That's the first reaction. The second reaction has been very good, and it's the overwhelming reaction from, when you say NPP, you have NPP people who are close, if you like, what do you call the party activists, who are very sensitive to things about party. We are always engaging with the opposition, and you are with them on radio stations. So, and I can understand. I was a former communication director for the party. I've been on media platforms for the party. So I understand that some of these things will just be taken up by political communicators and make you look bad and your government look bad. So those people are those who are expressing the worry. But the broad NPP voters who are within the population and they hear the complaints of the public, and especially NPP people in the middle class who vote us, but they are not necessarily politicians. They have sent me many messages asking me to stay the course and hoping that the party will take this up and own it, commit to make these changes so that we can win the election for them. Because, look, I try to sound as non-partisan as possible, because I think some of the changes would require a bipartisan consensus. You want durable changes. So I am careful in these discussions not to speak negatively of other parties. My objective is to rally everybody.
Right.
Now, but I have to say that I am an NPP person. I believe in my party. I think it is my party that can do these reforms and do them well. My only burden is that I have to now convince the whole party. And when I say the whole party, let me not even say I, because I've been working on some of these things with other colleagues. I've been working with people within party who encourage the communication of some of these ideas. So it's not even just me. The burden of those of us within party who believe that the party must get the bull by the horns, make these admissions, and proceed to give Ghanaians fresh air. Let's depart from this primitive political culture about going there to get what you want and people complaining and let's depart from that and give Ghanaians some fresh air. And trust me, the response we will get from Ghanaians would be as we have never imagined.
Right. I mean, let's talk about what you've just said, that you have to now convince the party. How easy do you think that will be, bearing in mind the way that your party has been communicating so far? You have your flag bearer talking about how he's been the best vice president ever. You have the running mate talking about how Nana Akufo-Addo has been the best president Ghana has ever seen, better than Nkrumah. At this point, how do you convince people who have been saying such things to now come back and say, we admit we are part of the problem, we have not done a good job, we have continued to do things that are wrong, and we promise to do better? How do you get? Well,
we don't as NPP and as the ruling party, we don't have to go and say that. Look, if you are doing comparison of the NPP, the NDC that came before us, and we can well defend the fact that given the external factors that have hit this country, given the culture that has existed in the public sector, that this government has done better than previous governments. All right, let's say in the Fourth Republic. So I'm not necessarily running a counter position to what the party has been saying, that we are the best among the political parties competing for power. Now, I agree with that. But what I'm saying is that there are times when your best is just not enough. So it should not be difficult for the party to say, yes, we are still the best. We think we have done better than the previous administration. But we see that for historical reasons and for other reasons, there are reforms we should even have done before. But it's better late than never. So going forward, this is where we draw the line. I think what Ghanaians are looking for is not so much the past. They want to see the set of people who, even if they have been part of previous wrongs, We recognize that where we are going, we need to change course, and are sincerely committed to taking us there. If you demonstrate that to Ghanaians, it should not be too difficult for Ghanaians to accept you. We should not be discouraged by the fact that we have said some things in the past. In any case, if your country is going down, doesn't matter what you said in the past. So assuming you have said things in the past that are wrong, but you recognize now that the party you're working in, and if anybody disagrees that Ghana is heading for trouble, I am willing to show the person data. And you will see that it is progressive. The problems we are having today is not because the Nanado administration has done something extraordinarily wrong. The problems we are having today are the cumulative effects of what we have been doing wrong for so long. We need our party, the New Patriotic Party, to step forward and to say we are the party that will deliver this country from this looming danger. And I am sure that to the extent that we are honest and sincere and we present credible ways of dealing with this, forgetting about what we ourselves even have said in the past, sincerity is important. If we do that, Ghanaians will buy our message and they would give us the opportunity to demonstrate what we have shown to them.
I want to say a big thank you to you, Mr. Kwaku Kwarteng, Honourable Member of Parliament for Boase West. We appreciate your time with us today.
Thank you too.